Dwayne McDonald, will provide a statement shortly and will be available to take questions afterwards. Additionally, for any French-speaking reporters, we have Corporal Alex Barube available online to respond to questions in French as well. Sir.
Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. And I recognize the significant interest not only the media but the public have in this event, so I will endeavor to do my best to inform you as up to date as possible and to provide some information moving forward about how we will manage our communications. I'll just start with a review of the incident from yesterday. So on February 10th at approximately 1:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at Tumbler Ridge, RCMP received a report of an active shooter at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. A police-initiated public alert, PIPA, was issued as officers responded. Police from Tumbler Ridge RCMP and surrounding detachments responded immediately, with members from the local detachment arriving within 2 minutes of the initial call. Upon arrival, there was active gunfire, and as officers approached the school, rounds were fired in their direction. Officers entered the school to locate the threat. Within minutes, an individual confirmed to be the shooter was located deceased with what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The suspect has been identified as 18-year-old Jesse Van Rutselaar, who is a resident of Tumbler Ridge. 2 firearms, a long gun and a modified handgun, were recovered by responding officers. Determining the origin of these firearms and what role they played in the shootings remains a significant part of the active and ongoing investigation. Multiple victims were located throughout the school, along with approximately 25 individuals with possible injuries. Once it was determined to be safe, officers evacuated over 100 students and faculty to a local community center, while police continued to assess whether any ongoing threats remained. Those with potential injuries were transported to the local medical clinic for triage and assessment, and 2 victims with significant injuries were transported to hospital via air ambulance. Following a medical assessment of the individuals, no discernible physical injuries were identified for those that remained at scene. I'd like to correct some information that was shared yesterday and to clarify that 9 people in total are deceased as a result of this incident. Initially, it was believed that one of the victims, a female with significant injuries, who was transported from the scene by our members and then transitioned to paramedics, had succumbed to her injuries. Police have since confirmed that is not the case. She is alive and was one of the 2 female victims that were airlifted to hospital. Both of those victims remain in serious condition. The deceased victims from the school include an adult female educator, 3 female students, and 2 male students between the ages of 13 and 17. 2 additional victims, an adult female and a male youth, were located deceased in the local residence. The BC Major Crime Unit has assumed conduct of the investigation and is working to determine the full circumstances surrounding this tragic incident. There's been much speculation within the community regarding the relationship between the shooter and some of the victims. All of that remains part of the active and ongoing investigation. We are not in a position to publicly confirm any specifics at this time. Additional resources have been deployed to Tumbler Ridge to support both the investigation and day-to-day policing operations, which continue with the assistance of our neighboring detachments. BC Emergency Health Services, the Tumbler Ridge Fire Department, the local medical center, the school district, the community center, and many others within the community have provided significant support throughout this response. Anyone in the community who does not need support, who does need support, is asked to go to the Tumbler Ridge Community Center at 340 Front Street. We understand the community has questions, and we understand they want to know the motive behind this tragic incident. We do believe the suspect acted alone, and there are currently no other outstanding suspects. Our investigators remain on scene, actively gathering information to determine the full circumstances of what transpired. This is a deeply distressing incident where 9 individuals have senselessly lost their lives. Our thoughts are with the families, the loved ones, the first responders in the greater Tumbler Ridge community, and all those impacted by this tragic incident. If you have questions, I'm prepared to take them at this time.
Officer Romina Dea from Global News. Could you please expand a little bit on the suspect? Was he known to police? Were there any red flags regarding his mental health?
So a suspect is identified as an 18-year-old female by the name of Jesse. We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
Could you spell the suspect's name, please?
Yes, the first name is spelt Jesse. The surname is spelt capital VAN and space capital ROOTSELAAR.
Were the two victims found at the residence where the suspect lived?
Yes.
And why can't you elaborate on the relationship between the victims and in that residence and the suspect?
I can't elaborate on that. So it is believed the victims of that residence and the suspect are family members.
Can you say what parent, sibling, what relationship that is?
Yes, the female adult victim is the mother of the suspect, and the youth male is the brother of the suspect, or stepbrother.
Can you expand, you talked
Yeah.
about the history of mental health with this female suspect. Could you expand on that?
I'll give you perhaps remaining some general comments on that. Police had attended that residence on multiple occasions over the past several years, dealing with concerns of mental health with respect to our suspect. I can say that on different occasions, the suspect was apprehended for assessment and follow-up.
So apprehended under the Mental Health Act?
Yes.
Taken to hospital?
In some circumstances, yes.
Any indication whether or not the suspect was receiving any help for their mental health situation regarding counseling, any of those services that are involved?
I don't have that information at this time. If the suspect was currently receiving care, I don't have that information at this time.
Any of the interactions with police, any of them have to do with weapons?
Yes.
In particular?
Yes.
Could you expand on that, please?
I will say that, again, I'm not trying to be too circumspect, but police have attended that residence in the past, approximately a couple of years ago, where firearms were seized under the criminal code. I can say that at a later point in time, the lawful owner of those firearms petitioned for those firearms to be returned, and they were.
Were criminal charges laid in relation to those firearms?
No.
What
firearms with FYI media? My question is, we've heard all around the world reports coming out from different media, not local but world, and we've heard people from Tumbler Ridge, actually people that know the shooter, and they are all saying that this person is transgender. Why is the RCMP not speaking to this? Why are we hiding this from the public?
Well, first off, thank you for your question. We're not hiding it. In fact, you're the first media to ask the question. I will say this. We identified the suspect as they chose to be identified in public and in social media. I can say that Jesse was born as a biological male who approximately, the information that I have, approximately 6 years ago began to transition to female and identified as female both socially and publicly.
Unfortunately, we've heard a lot of transgender as mass shootings. Do you think there's a correlation here?
It's too early to say whether that has any correlation in this investigation. I think it's important to recognize that this investigation is still in its infancy. We have scenes still lock down the school and the residence while we execute search warrants and gather further evidence and talk to witnesses that may have further evidence for police.
Can you tell us about the weapon? I'm just wondering, can you tell me when were police, prior to yesterday, last in contact with Jesse?
That's a good question. I probably have that answer somewhere here in my papers, but I believe we were there sometime last year.
So nothing in the last few days?
Nothing in the last few days, that's correct.
Okay, and you talked about the guns that were
Mhm.
recovered. And can you say anything about who owned those guns, what
So I will say this, I know the guns are of significant interest to everybody. Part of the reason we haven't identified the specific models of the firearms or ownership is because at this point in time, our investigators continue to pursue those leads. We want to make sure that the information we do provide is accurate. We want to ensure that we can identify properly the ownership of the firearms, how they were procured, whether they were lawfully owned, unlawfully owned, whether they were manufactured, and whether there could be any other parties to an offense that we are not yet aware of. So when we are able to release that information, we certainly will.
He was quite young. Did he have a license to have that?
I can say that she had a license that had expired. I believe it was in 2024. She did not have any firearms registered to her.
Can you talk about, sir, any indication in the information you have regarding Jesse experiencing bullying at the school, any sort of difficulty at the school because of this transition from male to female?
I do not have any information to suggest that was the case. I can say that Jesse dropped out of school approximately 4 years ago and was not currently attending the school.
Sir, I have a question here from Jared from the Western Standard. They wanted to just know why we waited until now to confirm the identity of the suspect.
It's a good question. I know it's one of concern, specifically with the speed of social media. I think it's important to recognize that yesterday, when we first provided a media availability, it was approximately 5 hours after the active shooter event. At that point in time, we were still trying to lock down locations. We had victims that we were evacuating. As you can imagine, the scene was quite chaotic with significant amount of trauma. And it's important for us when we do release information to get it accurate. I point to the case of now having to correct and say that there's only 9 deceased persons instead of 10. We want to get information out as quick as possible, but we also appreciate that that information needs to be accurate, because particularly when we're dealing with victims or dealing with the identity of a suspect, we have to take into consideration, in this case, our suspect was deceased. We had to locate next of kin to notify them. So I would hate, notwithstanding the public interest, I would hate for someone to find out that their loved one was deceased coming from our podium or coming from the news media in advance of being told in person.
And then I have one other question here from Ruth with Energetic City. Was the suspect related to anyone in the school?
I can say that the suspect was not related to any of the victims of the school. I don't have any broader information beyond that, other than say that the suspect was related to the 2 victims at the private residence.
Did the suspect leave a note or any other communication in advance of this happening?
Not that we've located so far, but we are continuing to pursue that lead.
Sir, are you able to give us sort of what the police's working theory is on why this happened?
Well, we don't have an idea yet as to motive. And again, recognizing we're still less than 24 hours into this incident, it is something that we are certainly passionately pursuing. But it would be too early to speculate on motive at this time.
Was there a bull put out to be on the lookout for prior to the shootings regarding the suspect?
Not that I'm aware of, but once the shootings commenced, we did issue the public police alert.
And did police open fire on the suspect?
Police did not return fire, to the best of my knowledge, but went into the school.
Where in the school were the victims killed?
There was one victim that was located deceased in the hallway, in the stairwell of the school, and the others were located, I believe, in the library of the school.
Can you comment on the home of the shooter? What was it like? Was it in disarray? Sometimes when there's some sort of abuse going on, there's certain things you can see in a home. Was it anything like that apparent?
I can't comment yet on the nature or the environment of the family home. It was locked down originally for to secure a search warrant in order to allow our investigators to go in. So I can't comment at this point in time.
Can you tell us the rough address of the home, like where the 2 people found deceased?
I do have that information. It will be locked down, so I would respectfully ask members of the media and the public not to attend the scene of the family home because we have a lot going on there, but it's 112 Fellers Avenue in Tumbler Ridge.
Regarding the home, were there additional firearms or weapons found during the search?
I don't have that information at this point in time. I can say that historically there were firearms that were secured at that residence in a safe, but I haven't updated with the investigators yet to determine if they've gone in and located more firearms.
Just looking for clarification, you talked about police being called to the school about an attempted shooting. Were they called to the home before that?
Yes, no, they were called after. So we understand the sequence of events, and I'll get to this. So we did not receive a call to attend the home until approximately 2:47 p.m. or 1:47 p.m. Pacific time. We were called because a neighbor, there was a young female at that home that went to the neighbors, and that's how we learned that there were 2 deceased at that residence. So the neighbor called the police. We know the sequence of events now is that the incident at the home occurred first, where we have the 2 deceased family members, and from there our suspect attended the school and commenced their criminal activity there.
What was the relationship of the child who alerted the neighbor to the victims and the suspect?
Family member.
Has the reunification process been completed for the injured and the evacuees?
For the students, and so most of the what I would call injured individuals are people that were assessed for injury were released right in Tumbler Ridge shortly after receiving triage and/or treatment. Those that have been medevaced, I can't speak to that, but I won't speculate on whether they've been in contact with their family. We're still dealing with extended family of those that are deceased.
Do police believe, based on the information you have thus far, that the suspect had gone into the school specifically targeting an individual, or it was a random shooting?
So we don't have information at this point to suggest that anyone was specifically targeted. I will say that as we continue in the investigation, there is further evidence to gather from the school with respect to video surveillance and that of our officers as well.
What can we expect with the victim IDs? Will the RCMP be naming them, and what status are you at with
Yeah.
family notification?
So we're currently ongoing with the family notification. I will say, as I mentioned before, that most of our victims are quite young. Most were born of the students, most were born 2013 and 2012. So as you can imagine, for family members, extended family members, friends of the family, et cetera, this is incredibly traumatic. And so we will deal with and work with the families and cooperate with them in terms of the release of the identities of the victims, photographs, and the like. I know we need to approach this with a trauma-informed practice. We don't want to create additional trauma for families that are dealing with probably the worst circumstances of their lives.
So some victims may not be named officially, or that will be up to the families?
That will be up to the families as they are minors.
In terms of the 25 people who were injured, how many of them sustained gunshot wounds?
So of the 25 surviving individuals, the 2 that are currently airlifted, the majority of the rest, there were not gunshot injuries. The reason they were all examined and triaged in first instance is there were a lot that presented with injury, blood, et cetera, that weren't actually injured, but we had to work through all that.
So what kind of injuries were they? Was it like glass or?
I don't want to speculate. I don't have the exact details, but you can imagine in a chaotic situation where the students and faculty are barricading themselves in a room that any types of injuries could result.
Were there any, you mentioned that there weren't any no recent involvement with police and the suspect, but were there any calls, concerns by anyone in the public to police about the suspect in recent days, weeks, months?
The most recent incidents I have are from spring of last year. So we've checked our police indices, their databases, et cetera. I don't have any information that there's been anything since then.
And could you give us the context of the spring of last year?
Similar to what I said before, the concerns regarding mental health, self-harm, those types of concerns.
Okay, we'll take 2 final questions.
Just to clarify my question on the injured. So was it 27 injured in total and 2
So I don't mean to smile, but to clarify that, I'm going to say I'm not entirely certain, because we have injured from gunshot wounds, we have deceased, and then we have those that were triaged at scene. I'm going to say that the 25 that were triaged at scene are separate from those that were airlifted and those that are deceased.
And then, sir, we just have one other question here regarding the victims. The ones that were airlifted, do we have any updates on their status at this point?
Critical but stable.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, I'm just gonna I need to steal this.
You can take the whole thing.
Okay. I just wanted to quickly correct one thing that just came in as Sir was up here speaking. So for the deceased victims, the school included a 39-year-old female educator, 3 12-year-old female students, 2 male students ages 12 and 13, and then the 2 additional victims were a 39-year-old female and an 11-year-old male that were located deceased at the local residence. We will be issuing a statement shortly following this availability.